Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at President Gerald Ford. We're going to be looking at the positive parts of his presidency and the negative parts to see if he was a good president, because a lot of historians will either rank someone fairly or rank someone based on their political beliefs, and that's not really the best way to rank presidents, because you might not think a president's policy was good, but it might have ended up actually helping the country. So we'll look at the positives of Gerald Ford. Now, first of all, Gerald Ford came into the presidency during a really tough time during America, because we had just gone out of Vietnam. The Watergate scandal was still very fresh in everyone's mind, because Richard Nixon actually had to resign, and because of that, Gerald Ford was sworn in as the next president. And first of all, the first real positive thing he did was the Helsinki Accords, which was a deal with the Soviet Union and other countries, 35 nations, that would really just continue to decrease the tensions of the Cold War, which Nixon had started back in during his term. He also was very popular on the domestic front. He signed the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, which was an act that made sure that we had special education. And that was a really good act. That was one of the first really big acts for those with disabilities. He also was really praised by conservatives for being really a fiscal conservative, which I'm not sure how some of you might like that, some of you guys might not like that. But he vetoed a lot of spending bills because Congress was extremely Democratic. It had a Democratic supermajority. So it was really hard for him, it was really hard for them, because he would veto all of their spending bills. But of course, there are some negative parts of his presidency. I'll save the biggest one for the end. But first of all, he had the Whip Inflation Act, which was an act that tried to get inflation down. Unfortunately, it failed. He had to halt it pretty soon. So you can really see it didn't fail, and now it failed, and that was pretty much his biggest accomplishment during, consider it for fiscal conservatism. Also, he was extremely bad when it came to dealing with Congress. He really wasn't very bipartisan. He wasn't able to get anything done, because if he would veto the Democratic Congress's agenda, and then the Democratic Congress would not support his agenda. So that was a pretty bad part of his presidency. But probably the biggest part of his presidency, and the thing that really plagued him and probably ruined his campaign when he tried to run for re-election in 1976, was the pardoning of Richard Nixon. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Ford, this was really bad because of Nixon, because Nixon was really seen as just a bad person after the Watergate scandal. So for him to be pardoned was probably really made a lot of people not trust Gerald Ford, because the people are like, this man is a crook. Why would you pardon him? So that really tanked his presidency, and unfortunately for him, he would go on to lose the presidential election in 1976 to Jimmy Carter, who will be the next person in our presidency. Okay, so was Gerald Ford a good president? He wasn't terrible. Now, keep in mind, he did only have about 2 years in office, if we really think about it, 1974 to 1977. Really, you can see it that pretty much only 2 years, which is not a lot. Probably the shortest of all the presidents that I'm going to be doing in this series. But he had some good foreign policy, some decent domestic things, but he also had a lot of, there was some pardoning of Nixon and other things domestic. He was not very bipartisan. He wasn't bad, but I think he definitely had a lot of things that plagued his presidency. Alright, so that's it for the video. Tomorrow we're going to do Jimmy Carter. Bye.